The courthouse smelled of old paper and polished wood. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting sharp beams across the benches where townsfolk had gathered. Most had no business being there. They were just curious. A high-profile trial in a small southern town was enough to turn an ordinary Tuesday into an event. At the center of it all was Malik Carter, 14 years old. Slim as a reed, skin a deep brown that caught the light, and eyes that carried the unusual sharpness of someone who noticed everything. His classmates teased him, sometimes admiring, sometimes cruel. Walking dictionary. Professor Malik, the Black Einstein. He never paid much mind. His real world wasn't in the playground. It was in the way numbers danced in. His head, how he could recall entire conversations word for word. Or how he found patterns in chaos where adults saw nothing but noise. Yet on that day, Malik wasn't here to amaze anyone. He was here because his father's freedom depended on it. James Carter, Malik's father, a quiet mechanic with grease-stained hands and a reputation for honesty, had been accused of armed robbery. According to the prosecution, he had held up a convenience store, stealing $2,000 and threatening the cashier with a gun. The town was divided. Some swore James was incapable of such violence. Others whispered that hard times drove good men into bad choices. The only evidence against him was the shaky testimony of the cashier, who insisted James was the man, and a blurry security camera tape where a hooded figure waved a pistol. Malik knew his father was innocent. He'd been with him that night, in their small apartment, working through Malik's algebra homework while the robbery supposedly took place. But the defense attorney had warned them, alibis are tricky when it's just family. The jury rarely believes it. Malik had stayed, quiet, notebook in hand, observing. But inside, a storm brewed. He had noticed things, inconsistencies, in the cashier's story. Odd details in the police report, even something strange about the timing of the security footage. Nobody had asked him, though. After all, what could a boy possibly contribute? To a court of law? As the trial began, Malik sat silently behind his father, clutching his worn leather notebook. His pencil hovered above the page, scribbling down every word, every gesture, every slip of the tongue. He didn't know yet what he would do with it. He only knew that truth had a sound, and lies carried a stutter, a crack, a hesitation. The mystery deepened when the prosecutor, a sharp-suited man with slicked-back hair, leaned close to the jury and declared with conviction, James Carter walked into that store at 9:32 p.m. with a gun. He looked the cashier in the eyes and said, "Hand over the money," and he took it. "We will prove this beyond a reasonable doubt." Malik's pencil scratched furiously. 9:32 p.m. A specific time. A bold statement. He underlined it twice, because Malik knew something the prosecutor didn't. At exactly 9:32 p.m., his father had been at home, not just sitting idly, but talking to Malik about a math problem. And Malik, being Malik, had written it down. His notebook held the date, the time, and even the equation they had solved together. But who would believe a boy? The weight of that question pressed on Malik's chest as the gavel struck and the trial began. Asterisk, the first witness was the cashier, a young man named Derek Willis. Nervous and sweating under the courtroom lights, he fidgeted as he spoke. It was him. I'll never forget his face. He pointed the gun right at me. I thought I was going to die. Malik's eyes narrowed. He had read about memory, how trauma twisted it, how certainty could be false. But no one questioned Derek's certainty, except the defense attorney, a weary man named Mr. Harris. "Mr. Willis," Harris asked, "how long did you see the robber's face?" "Maybe 3 seconds? 4? In the dark? The gun pointed at you?" "Yes, but I know it was him." Derek jabbed his finger toward James Carter. The jury stirred. Malik scribbled in his notebook. 3 seconds. Dark. Fear. Unreliable. Next came the police officer, describing the blurry footage. He admitted the face wasn't clear, but the build, the height, matched James Carter. The words felt vague, stretched. Malik underlined matched. 3 times all through the day, Malik's heart pounded. He wanted to shout, to object, to point out the contradictions, but he stayed silent. He was just a boy that night back in their apartment. Malik sat at the kitchen table, flipping through his notes. His mother, exhausted from the day, rubbed her temples. "Baby, the lawyer's doing all he can. Don't get your hopes too high." "But Mama," Malik said softly, "they're lying. Or maybe they don't even know they're lying. I can see it. I can prove it." She looked at him, her eyes red-rimmed. "Even if you could, nobody's going to let a child stand up in court." Malik lowered his gaze but didn't close the notebook. He had always been underestimated, always overlooked. That was his power. Adults never saw him coming as he fell asleep. One thought burned in his mind. If no one else will fight for the truth, then I will. The second week of the trial brought more tension. The prosecutor revealed a supposed eyewitness, a woman, who claimed she saw James running from the store. Malik leaned forward, scribbling furiously as she spoke. She said she was walking her dog at 9:40 p.m. near the corner of Maple and 3rd Street. She saw a man in a hoodie, tall and broad, sprint past. "I know it was him," she insisted. Malik's pulse quickened. Something was off. Maple and 3rd Street was 2 miles from the Carter's apartment. At 9:40 p.m., James had been on the couch, flipping channels while Malik checked over his math work. Malik had jotted down the time when his father told him to go to bed soon. He flipped back in his notebook. 9:41 p.m., written in his messy scrawl, circled twice. His father had been right there. The mystery gnawed him. Why were people so certain about things that didn't add up? Why wasn't anyone seeing what he saw? On the third day, the prosecution brought up the security footage again. The timestamp on the tape said 9:32 p.m., but Malik's razor-sharp memory remembered something odd from the police report. The store's camera had been broken the week before and repaired just 2 days before the robbery. He remembered reading the repairman's note. Clock reset manually. His stomach dropped. If the clock had been set manually, what if the time was wrong? That night, Malik couldn't sleep. He paced the living room, notebook in hand, connecting dots, muttering under his breath. His mother watched, worry etched across her face. "Malik, you're scaring me," she said. He turned to her, eyes blazing. "Mama, the tape is wrong. Witness is wrong. The whole case is built on shadows. They're going to put Dad in prison unless someone says it." "Baby, no judge will listen to a child." Malik's jaw tightened. "Then I'll make him listen." The next day, during cross-examination, Malik did the unthinkable. Stood up. The courtroom froze. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The judge, a stern man with steel-gray hair, banged his gavel. "Young man, sit down. This is not your place." But Malik didn't sit. His notebook trembled in his hands, but his voice was steady. "Your Honor, please. I need to speak. My father is innocent, and I can prove it." Gasps filled the room. The prosecutor smirked. "This is highly irregular. It's just a boy." The judge glared. "Young man, you understand this is a court of law? This isn't school? This isn't a game?" "Yes, sir," Malik said. His eyes locked on the judge's. "But the truth doesn't care how old you are." For a long moment, silence reigned. Finally, the judge sighed. "I'll allow him 5 minutes. But if this turns into nonsense, I'll hold you in contempt." Malik nodded, stepping to the witness stand. His hand shook as he placed his notebook on the table. But when he spoke, his words carried clarity beyond his years. He began with the math problem at 9:32 p.m., showing his notes, the exact date and time. He explained how his father was home, helping him solve it. Then he pointed out the repairman's note, showing that the security camera's clock could not be trusted. He flipped to another page, detailing the eyewitness timeline and how it conflicted with his own recorded note. At 9:41 p.m., she couldn't have seen him running. He was home telling me to go to bed. Every word was precise, logical, undeniable. His memory became a blade, cutting through the lies. The prosecutor tried to interrupt. "This is speculation?" "No, sir," Malik said firmly. "This is observation. There's a difference." The jury leaned forward. The judge's face softened. then hardened again, struggling to keep composure. By the time Malik finished, the courtroom was silent. Even the reporters had stopped scribbling. The judge removed his glasses slowly, studying the boy. His lips parted, then closed again. For once, the man who commanded the room with every word was speechless. Finally, he cleared his throat. I've been on this bench for 25 years. I've heard attorneys twist words. I've seen witnesses lie. I've seen justice bent. But I have never seen a child dismantle a case with this kind of clarity. The prosecutor sputtered. Your Honor, this is irregular. Or not, the judge cut him off. The boy has raised reasonable doubt, and that is the cornerstone of justice. The jury was dismissed to deliberate, but it didn't take long. Within an hour, they returned with a verdict. Not guilty. The courtroom erupted. Malik's mother sobbed, clutching her husband. James, tears streaming down his face, knelt to embrace his son. You saved me, Malik. You saved us. But Malik only whispered, I just told the truth. As they left the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. They wanted sound bites, headlines, sensational quotes. Yet Malik said nothing more. He had already spoken the only words that mattered. The mystery of the case faded in the months to come, but the legend of that day grew. People spoke of the boy who stood up in court, who left a judge speechless, who proved that brilliance and courage could come from the most unexpected places, and somewhere. In a small apartment filled with hope, a leather notebook lay on a desk, its pages crammed with scribbles, equations, and truths, the silent witness to a genius who refused to be ignored.